I keep my little Phalaenopsis next to, this is my largest Phalaenopsis. This one I repotted not too long ago, maybe a few weeks ago. And the flowers are still there, and they're still looking great. I thought I was going to lose the flowers, but no. No. I potted it straight into clay with a fine bark. Well, this was the medium, and fine. There's the fine bark with sphagnum moss. That's what this is potted in, and it's a pretty big pot, but the root system pretty much fills the pot, and it had a lot of roots. So I bought it and had this weird coloring. I think at one point it was getting too much sun. It's not sunburn. I call it a suntan. I'll show you another one of mine that has a suntan. This one is one of my favorite orchids. And if you look, one of my favorite Phalaenopsis. So if you look right here, see that little purpley reddish color that's happening on the leaves? That's a suntan. That means that your orchid is getting the most light you can handle. And it's not hurting my orchid, it just gives it a weird color. And this orchid seems to be pretty happy because it's putting on another spike. This plant had some roots, but this spike is growing fast. This is one of my fastest growing orchids. I got it as a little guy. I repotted it as soon as the flowers were falling, and about a month after, I've got a spike growing. It's potted in a clay pot directly with sphagnum moss and medium chunks of bark. Actually, mostly sphagnum moss, because when you put them in a clay pot like this and you live in a dry climate like I do, it tends to dry it out really fast and you end up watering it every other day. So using more sphagnum moss, you can use all sphagnum moss if you're using a clay pot. I wouldn't use all sphagnum moss in plastic, but clay, it's fine. So that's that. Then we have my oldest. Now we have my oldest and my first orchid. This is just a plain white. It was given to me as a gift from a friend. This leaf is pretty new. I think it's still growing. I hope it is. It was smaller a few months ago. This guy has gotten a little sunburn, just a little tiny bit. Just a little yellow on the leaves. Didn't hurt the sun. Didn't hurt it much. When this dropped its blooms, I decided to do an experiment on it. I cut it. I cut the spike down, as you can see. And check it out. There's growth. But you know what's even cooler? I also put a little cinnamon on the end when I cut it. What's even cooler is if we go down here. Look at that. Oh, right, yep, right. Right, where's my finger? Where's my finger? Oh my gosh. Okay, right there. Boom. Another spike coming out of here. So I'm going to have flower branched off there. Flower branching. But guess what else? This. I have a root. Yeah, of course. There's your root right there. But that right there, that's a spike. It's pretty small, but I can tell it's a spike. Because roots grow down. Spikes tend to go up. And roots are rounded on the edges. Spikes are pointing. You see that tiny nub? A tiny little nub right there. Tiny little nub. That's a spike. So I have a spike, and I have spikes on the old spike. This plant is happy I saved it because I almost killed it. When I had it, I just didn't water it for a long time, and it dried out, and I thought it was dead, and yellowy leaves. But then I saw a tiny bit of new growth growing on, and I go, maybe I should water this plant. So I started watering it, and sure enough, it came back to life. I got these 2 leaves. This is new growth. It took a few years for it to come back to life, but it's doing really well. Now, I have it potted in medium bark with sphagnum moss. This one has more bark than sphagnum moss because it's in a bamboo pot thing. This is a bamboo pot. It retains water pretty well, just like plastic. And so this doesn't dry out as fast. This thing actually had a pretty decent root system, so I'll put it in a slightly larger pot. I don't see a problem planting orchids in slightly larger pots as long as you know to take extra care watering them. Now here is my second orchid that I almost killed. Yeah, I don't know. I have a history of almost killing orchids. This guy, once it rebounded and came back to life, I got 4 leaves on it. But it's been a year since I saw this bloom. And it's only bloomed for me since when I got it. I've kind of forgotten what these flowers even look like. But it's turned green because of the fertilizer I was using. I dyed it, but this is Mimosa sphagnum moss with bark chunks. And what's really exciting is that I have not 1, but 2 spikes coming. Check it out. Right there, that's a spike. And then, right there, that's a spike. You know how I knew that was a spike? Because in this particular plant, everyone's different. It'll cause a split in the core right there. See how it's like split and the thing's coming out? That's how you know it's a spike. Because roots don't split the core like that. They just poke out. See? Those are roots. They just poke out. So I have 2 spikes. I'm so excited. I haven't seen this thing flower in literally a year. So yay. Those are my phals. My Phalaenopsis spikes. We'll see how it goes when they bloom.